It's probably the biggest political scandal in this country in living memory, and Sir Keir Starmer is fighting for his political future after he admitted that he knew about Mandelson's friendship with Epstein when he picked him for the job, but claimed that he lied repeatedly about the true extent of that relationship.
This morning, the Housing Secretary, Steve Reed, said that giving Mandelson the role was a rational appointment. Steve Reed joins us now. Very good morning to you. Either the Prime Minister was totally naive and believed a liar about the extent of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which was a matter of public record. We've just spoken to one of the journalists who reported on it. Or he didn't care about Jeffrey Epstein's victims and the survivors and thought it was worth the risk to appoint Lord Mandelson. Why are you shaking your head, Mr. Reed?
Well, because neither of those two things you've just said are the truth, unfortunately. If people had known when Mandelson was appointed what was really going on, he never would have been given that job. The victims, above all else, the victims of Epstein's crimes have to be and should be at the front of all of our minds. What Mandelson did...
Mr. Reed, I'm sorry, but they did know.
They didn't know.
It was reported in the Financial Times.
They didn't.
And that information was also given to the Prime Minister at a press conference that Mandelson had spent nights at Epstein's mansion in New York. Now, you don't spend time in someone's private house unless you're pretty close to them.
While they were serving their sentence, while Epstein was in prison.
So, of course you knew.
And there are documents that will be released to explain exactly what Mandelson said about that. But what Mandelson did was he lied and pretended his relationship with Epstein had finished, and that even when the relationship had been ongoing, it was next to nothing. He barely knew him. They had very little contact. That is what Mandelson said. The vetting process didn't show up anything that contradicted that, and so the appointment was made.
Mr.
We
Reed,
now know
Steve Reed,
that
we are
Mandelson was
looking
lying,
at
deceiving and manipulating.
We are looking at photographs of Lord Mandelson with Jeffrey Epstein. We know he spent time, slept at his house. We know about his connection with Jeffrey Epstein.
Photographs that came out after he'd been appointed. None of this was known at the time. As soon as the Prime Minister found out months ago that Mandelson had deceived him, was manipulative in the answers that he gave to the questions during the vetting process, as soon as the Prime Minister found out about it, he sacked Mandelson on the spot. Mandelson was woken up at 5 a.m. and told he was sacked as the UK's ambassador to the United States because the Prime Minister took decisive action the moment he found out that Peter Mandelson had lied to him.
Yes,
this wasn't just yesterday, this was months ago when the Prime Minister found out what had really been going on.
And it wasn't just the Prime Minister in possession of that additional information, it was also in the public domain. So, of course, he had to sack him, he had to act, because we all knew what had been going on. The key question that many people are asking this morning is this. Setting aside Mandelson's undoubted lies during the vetting process, wasn't enough already known about his relationship with Epstein to comprehensively disbar him from such an important job?
It's easy, isn't it, with hindsight, when you do know the truth, to look back at a time when that was not
hindsight.
When Mandelson was appointed to this
based on what was
you're asking me
already
questions,
known.
but you're not actually letting me answer.
No, but because you've
misinterpreted. What's the point asking me a question if I can't answer
my
it?
question, sir. The question was this.
No, well, you're not listening to what I'm saying. If I haven't even answered it, how do you know I've misinterpreted it?
Because of your opening statement. You talked about hindsight. What I was saying was that the information that was in possession of the government and of the Prime Minister, setting aside Mandelson's lies during the vetting process, wasn't that information sufficient to disbar him from being given such an important job?
I know you're saying that because you've got the benefit of hindsight, but at the time, no, it wasn't. There was a process that was gone through. Mandelson lied. The process includes the security forces. Nothing additional was thrown up at the time to make it clear that Mandelson was lying, and so he was appointed. Everyone regrets that now, of course, but as soon as the truth came to light, with that first release of files from the United States, months ago, the Prime Minister took immediate and decisive action. He phoned him up at 5 a.m. in the morning and sacked him on the spot as the UK's ambassador to the United States. Now, further information has come to light over recent days, and the Prime Minister has taken further action, spoken to the King to remove Peter Mandelson from the Privy Council, and has announced that we are going to change the law to strip him of his title of a Lord. Every time a new information has come to light, the Prime Minister has acted, But he regrets, we all regret, that Mandelson was ever appointed, but that happened because the vetting process did not demonstrate what was really going on.
I am really confused by what you're saying. I know you're confused by our questions, but I am confused about what you're telling us, because the Financial Times had reported in 2023 about the relationship between Lord Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. And that reporter told Sir Keir Starmer that at a press conference in 2024. But you're saying it was new information. It wasn't. It was in the public domain.
What I'm saying, Susanna, is the vetting process. Peter Mandelson lied and said that his relationship with Epstein had ended long ago and had been next to nothing in any case. The vetting process did not show that that was a lie, and so Mandelson was appointed.
So can I just
now, that vetting process, we clearly need to look at the...
So despite the fact it was reported, it was put to Keir Starmer, and it was a matter of public record, the vetting process...
to be honest, Susanna, lots of things are reported and are not true.
OK. Well, so instead of that all being a matter of public record, the vetting process was simply to ask Lord Mandelson if it was true and rely on Lord Mandelson saying it wasn't true.
No, it wasn't that.
Well, that's what you
Susanna,
seem to suggest.
That is not what it was.
So how else did you bottom out what this story was?
Well, I just said, didn't I? Did you hear me say? I said the security forces were involved in vetting as well, and that threw up nothing of additional concern. Nothing of additional concern.
But you've repeatedly
if people had known at the time...
But you've repeatedly
If people had known at the time, he wouldn't have been appointed.
Yes.
All of these documents will be published. You'll be able to see. You don't have to guess like you're doing now.
Well, what does that say about our security services and the vetting process?
Well, it shows that the vetting process wasn't good enough, and that's one of the things we need to look at. But it is a long-established vetting process that long precedes this government coming into power, but clearly it failed on this occasion. Information that should have been made available to the Prime Minister was not, and so he took a decision without knowing that Mandelson was lying. As soon as he found out, he sacked him. Now, we can't legislate against liars lying. What you can judge somebody by is what do they do when the liar is exposed, and Keir Starmer could not have acted more quickly or more decisively. He phoned him up at 5 a.m. and sacked him on the spot.
But the fact of the matter, and you keep avoiding this point, you keep invoking hindsight...
I haven't avoided anything you've asked me, Richard.
Could I finish my question?
Not a single question.
Could I finish my question, sir?
Well, you're making up lies about me avoiding your questions. I'm answering every single one.
Making up lies, and I think anybody watching this interview will observe that you have used the excuse of hindsight to defend the Prime Minister. What I'm putting to you, and I'll try it for the third time, is that what the Prime Minister was already aware of before the vetting process was undergone, the failed vetting process, before that, so we can't talk about hindsight, he was aware that Mandelson had had a close relationship with a convicted paedophile financier. He knew that. That wasn't hindsight. He knew that, and he disregarded that information when he made the appointment.
That is not true. That is not true. Categorically, that is not true. When Mandelson went through the vetting process, not everything in the papers is God's gospel truth, you know. There was a vetting process that was gone through. Mandelson was asked questions. He provided answers that covered it up, and no other part of the vetting process exposed what was really going on. As soon as we discovered what had really happened, Mandelson was sacked. It is hindsight. I know you don't like me using the term, but we have hindsight now. We see what he was up to. We see his deception and lies for what they truly were. Everyone regrets that he was ever appointed to this job, but had the information we now know, had that been available at the time, he would never have been appointed, and nor should he have been.